In the remote village of Okuta, Nigeria, two sisters, Kemi and Zara, lived under the weight of a family secret that neither could escape. Kemi, the elder sister, had once been the pride of her family. Her marriage to Aid, a wealthy and influential man, was celebrated by all. But the marriage, for all its outward success, was plagued by an emotional distance that had begun to suffocate her. Desperate to salvage what was left of her crumbling relationship, Kemi had made an unusual request to her sister. She had asked Zara to become Aid's second wife. In their culture, polygamy was not unheard of, but the request came with a heavy burden. Zara, though younger, had always been protective of Kemi, and despite her reservations, she agreed to the arrangement in the hope that it might bring harmony to the family. At first, the arrangement appeared to work. Aid treated Zara kindly, and Kemi seemed relieved to have the pressure lifted from her marriage. But as time passed, things began to unravel. Kemi's desperation to maintain control over her husband and her household grew. The strain in the relationships between the three of them intensified, and it wasn't long before jealousy and resentment took root. Kemi's manipulations started small. A sharp word here, a suspicious glance there. But soon they grew into something more insidious. When Kemi discovered she was pregnant, she saw the child not as a blessing, but as a weapon. She believed the baby would solidify her place in the household and give her power over Zara. Zara, meanwhile, found herself caught in a web of lies and deceit, struggling to maintain her dignity in a situation that was quickly spiraling out of control. The birth of Kemi's child did little to ease the tensions in the household. If anything, it only made things worse. The baby, a boy named Tunde, was sickly from the start. Kemi, desperate to protect her position, used the child's illness to further manipulate Zara. She insinuated that Zara's presence in the household was the cause of Tunde's failing health, planting seeds of doubt in Aid's mind. Zara, heartbroken by her sister's accusations, withdrew into herself. She had agreed to the marriage out of love for Kemi, but now she found herself isolated and blamed for things beyond her control. The once close bond between the sisters was shattered, and the household became a battleground of simmering tensions. One night, as a storm raged outside, Zara overheard Kemi speaking to Aid in hushed tones. Kemi was insisting that Zara leave the household, that her presence was a curse on the family. Aid, torn between the two women, remained silent, his indecision only fueling the growing divide. Zara, unable to bear the situation any longer, packed her belongings and left the household in the dead of night. She found refuge in a small cottage on the outskirts of the village, where she tried to rebuild her life. But even in her isolation, she could not escape the whispers of the villagers or the weight of her sister's betrayal. Meanwhile, Kemi, now fully in control of the household, believed she had won. With Zara gone, she thought peace would return, but instead, she found herself consumed by guilt. The joy she had hoped for never materialized. Tunde's health continued to deteriorate, and Aid grew more distant with each passing day. Kemi's obsession with control and power had driven a wedge not only between her and Zara, but also between her and Aid. The family that she had fought so hard to hold together was now falling apart before her eyes, and she could do nothing to stop it. As Kemi's world crumbled, Zara found solace in her new life. She began to help other women in the village, offering them support and guidance. Though she was still hurt by her sister's actions, Zara refused to let the betrayal define her. She had found a new sense of purpose, and with it, a quiet strength that allowed her to heal. But just as Zara was beginning to move on, Aid came to her with a plea. He had been watching from a distance as Kemi's behavior grew more erratic, and Tunde's health worsened. Aid believed that Zara's return to the household might be the only way to save the child. He apologized for not defending her when Kemi had turned against her and begged Zara to come back, hoping that her presence could restore balance to the family. Zara was torn. She had finally found peace after so much turmoil, but she could not ignore the innocent child whose life hung in the balance. After much contemplation, Zara agreed to return to the household, though she did so with caution. Her return was met with hostility from Kemi, who saw Zara's presence as a direct threat to her control. Kemi lashed out, accusing Zara of trying to steal her husband and take her place as the head of the household. But Zara remained calm, refusing to engage in the power struggle. She had not come back to fight. She had come to save the child. In the weeks that followed, Zara quietly took on the role of caregiver for Tunde. Under her watchful eye, the baby's health began to improve, though the peace in the household was tenuous at best. Kemi, seeing that Zara's return had brought some stability to the family, remained bitter, but began to soften, though only slightly. The sisters' relationship was far from repaired, but there was a fragile truce between them. One day, a renowned healer arrived at the household, promising to cure Tunde once and for all. Kemi, desperate for a solution, welcomed him with open arms. But Zara was wary. She had seen little improvement from the last healer's visit and was skeptical of his methods. As the healer performed his rituals, Zara quietly observed, knowing that real healing would not come from outside forces, but from within the family itself. The healer's visit did little to change Tunde's condition, but it did stir something within Kemi. Watching Zara care for her son with such tenderness, Kemi was reminded of the bond they had once shared as sisters. For the first time, she began to question her own actions and the choices that had led them to this point. Late one night, Kemi approached Zara, her face etched with sorrow. "I don't know what I've become," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "I was so afraid of losing everything that I pushed you away. I've ruined our family." Zara, though still hurt by all that had happened, saw the vulnerability in her sister's eyes. She knew that forgiveness would not come easily, but in that moment, she felt the faintest glimmer of hope. Perhaps, with time, they could find a way to heal, not just for their sake, but for the sake of the family they had both sacrificed so much for. In the months that followed, Kemi and Zara worked together to care for Tunde, putting aside their differences for the good of the child. Aid, too, began to rebuild his relationship with both women, grateful for the fragile peace that had returned to his household. Though the wounds of the past were still fresh, there was a sense of quiet hope that perhaps, one day, they could all find a way to move forward. But the road to healing was not easy. The damage done could not be undone, and the scars of betrayal would remain. Yet in the midst of the pain and loss, there was love, a love that had been tested, broken, and reshaped, but never truly destroyed.